Good morning, Advocate Law.
Good morning, Chief Justice.
Are you well?
I am, thank you.
Are you relaxed?
Relatively.
Okay. Where did you study law?
I studied law at the University of Natal, as it was in those days, in Pietermaritzburg.
On a lighter note, did you study law because you really wanted to, or did the surname law propel you in that direction?
It's a question that's frequently asked. Because I wanted to, and also I think in the time that I studied, it was very much expected that for you to go into one of the professions if you were going to go down that road, and law was the one that just attracted me.
Yes. And what did you do after completion
Of my law degree.
of your LLB degree?
I did a postgraduate diploma in industrial relations at Durban University.
Full time?
It was a full-time course, but it was a night course. So the classes were held in the evening. I think it was 3 nights a week. And during the day, I got a job as an office administrator.
Yes. Thereafter?
And thereafter, I went overseas for what is today called a gap year, where I was in London for just under a year, working in something completely unrelated to the law in the catering industry, as you will have seen from my curriculum vitae.
Yes.
And that was quite an experience.
Is there any part of that experience that you think have really made you a better person, a better lawyer?
Absolutely, I think it was a very good life experience. And it was also an experience where I learned quite a lot of humility, especially where I experienced discrimination firsthand.
As a woman?
It was more based, being in the UK, they have quite distinct class divisions sometimes, or certainly at that time. And it was as a woman, not so much as a woman, but as a foreigner and as somebody who was working in the position, as, for example, when I was working at one of the multinational companies there, I was working in the director's kitchen. And we had to take tea and coffee around to the boardrooms. And I found that people looked down at you, like, for example, the director's secretaries would look down at you because you were the tea lady, so to speak, and they spoke to you in quite derogatory terms. And there was one instance where I was working temporarily at a bank, and I was alone in the kitchen when a call came through from the boardroom. And somebody said, "We need some coffees here, please." And all the other people who were in the kitchen on that day were out. So I got the trolley ready, I went out, I came back, and everybody in the kitchen was back, and they said, "Where were you?" And I said, "I took some coffee to boardroom X." "How could you do that? How dare you do that? Did you know what to do properly?" And because my accent was different, these women were speaking to me in a different accent.
Yes.
And obviously yeah. Well, so I found because I was other, because I was different to those people, yeah. And then I was taken down 10 notches for showing initiative and doing something like that. And they didn't think that I had the capability of doing it.
Yes. Did that in any way enlighten you in relation to how to deal with litigants who might be illiterate in case you're a presiding officer when they appear before you? Or people who are disadvantaged one way or the other?
Yeah, it's obviously something I wasn't aware of before my own experience of it, but actually experiencing it firsthand highlights it to you. So certainly I think patience, empathy, you do definitely have to be tolerant and to understand people's differences and people's difficulties in communicating.
coming back home, did you in any way apply that experience in your interaction with others, and if so, how?
Well, definitely. I mean, I've always treated others with respect, and I think it has just, taught me, just reinforced respect and patience and understanding, and also never judge a book by its cover, because obviously at that stage when I was in the UK, I was already a graduate with a number of degrees, and people don't see that. So it's don't judge a book by the cover. Always realize that everybody is more than what you see on the outside.
Yes.
Don't.
Now, tell me, if you add up all the years of your practice, how long did you practice as an advocate?
I've been practicing for almost 23 years.
Yes. And how many times have you acted as a judge of the High Court?
I've acted for a total of 23 weeks, Chief Justice. I did 3 sessions last year, and then I did the first 2 sessions of this year.
Yes.
I had a part heard, which I completed at the end of January, and then I went straight into the first and second sessions.
Just boast a bit in relation to your suitability for appointment to the bench.
I think that the grounding which my practice has given me, it's relatively wide. I have a very good grounding, particularly in civil procedure and working at the rock face for as long as I have. I do obviously have some criminal experience as well, as you would have seen from my questionnaire and my CV. I have thoroughly enjoyed the acting. I found it to be very challenging and very stimulating.
What is the longest period you've kept the judgment reserved for?
It's been 5 months, Chief Justice.
Never more?
Never more. There is one matter that's still outstanding. It was the one referred to in my questionnaire, which was the full court appeal, where we had asked for further written argument when we heard the appeal. A point subsequently came up that nobody had considered. I was the scribe in the matter. And whilst I was preparing the judgment, a point came up that had not been considered by anybody involved. So we had to call for written argument, and that only came to hand last month. So I have not yet had a chance to finalize that, but I am close to doing a draft to give to the 2 judges who were on the appeal with me.
Yes. Deputy Judge President Madondo.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Ms. Lowe, would you say that the acting stints have given you adequate exposure and experience in both criminal and civil matters?
Deputy JP, I haven't done, in my my acting sessions last year, I didn't do any criminal matters, apart from the criminal appeals. In my last 2 sessions that I've done, for the first session in Durban, I sat for the entire session doing crime, and there was one trial that is run before me that was set down for the whole session, and it has gone part heard. And then I didn't have a trial that ran in the second session, but there were a number of guilty pleas. So I do believe that the criminal experience I've had in the last few months in these last 2 sessions, let me say, has certainly reawakened that well of stored knowledge that I had from the time that I did criminal work when I was practicing. And I do believe that, yes, it has given me sufficient experience. I think it was very valuable to have that one trial that it ran for the whole of the first session.
But am I correct to say we have not finalized a single matter in crime?
I have finalised, there were some guilty pleas which were finalised,
I mean the trial.
but not a trial, no, not in the time that I've been
So
acting.
in the circumstances, can you still say you have sufficient experience in crime?
Look, I think when it comes to certainly at the running of the trial, and as I say, with my previous experience at actually practicing and having done some criminal work, albeit a long time ago, certainly when it comes to conducting the trial, I think I feel very comfortable in that. And when it comes down to the judgment writing, I think the skills are, they're not vastly different to when one would be writing a judgment in any other matter. So, yes, there's probably room to develop.
Okay, thank you. What do you regard to be your major contribution to the bench should you be appointed?
I'm very diligent, I'm very hardworking, and I think I'm a person of integrity. So I will certainly put my shoulder to the grindstone and help with the work in this division.
Do you have any outstanding judgments?
The only outstanding reserve judgment I've got is the full court appeal one that I mentioned to the Chief Justice.
Okay. Will you say that your appointment to the bench will improve demographics in the KZN division?
I certainly think from the point of view of, from the gender point of view, it would.
Are you conversant with the traditional legal system?
I beg your pardon with the...
Are you conversant with traditional legal system?
No, I'm not.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, DJP. MEC Tusi.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Advocate Law.
Good morning.
Can you elaborate on the contribution you can make in transforming the judiciary, in ensuring that there is fair representation of Black Africans and women in particular on the bench, considering the demographics in Section 174(2) of the Constitution?
Okay, do you mean the contribution that would be made by my appointment?
That's correct.
Well, I would hope that my appointment would serve as some form of inspiration to other women who would like to be on the bench. The issue of transformation is obviously a very difficult one because it involves transformation almost of the entire profession and not just the judiciary. So certainly I think, well, again, from a gender perspective, there would be transformation, and I would hope that my appointment would serve as an inspiration to other women who might feel that it is something that is out of their attainment. I'm not sure if that's the answer you were looking for.
No, I'm not. It's not the answer that I'm looking for, but you've answered.
I don't know
partly.
if I've answered your question. Thank you.
Commissioner Nyambi.
Thank you, CJ. Can you share with us your understanding about the rate of transformation of judiciary in our country?
I understand that the rate of transformation insofar as gender transformation has been rather slow. The reason for that is, as I alluded to earlier, possibly is because transformation in the profession itself as a whole has been rather slow. And I also think because it was for such a long time such an exclusively male profession, women entered the profession somewhat later, so to speak. So it's taken a while. When I think about it, when I began practicing as an advocate, there were only 10 women at the bar. That has changed quite dramatically now over the years. So my understanding is that more obviously needs to be done from a gender perspective. My understanding from a racial perspective is that that's improved in leaps and bounds from where it was, let's say, 20 odd years ago, and that on that score, we're much closer to attaining the desired levels. But yes, does that answer your question?
Are you able to speak any of the African languages?
I don't. I'm not.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Commissioner Nyambi. Commissioner Nkosi Thomas.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Ms. Law.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Ms. Law, we have been furnished by the BLA with comments as
Yes.
regards your appointability.
Yes.
And the comment that has been put forward is that your overall time as an acting judge is way too short to have prepared you
Yes.
for the position in respect of which you are applying, i.e. a period of 3 months. Would you care to comment on that, please?
I have done a further 2 sessions subsequent to that. So that would have been an additional, I think it's another 9 weeks was added. I do believe that it has been sufficient. I've done quite a wide range of things in the time that I've been acting. Obviously, I've done civil trials, the motion court, I've done case flow court, many criminal appeals. I've got the criminal trial that I'm dealing with at the moment that is part heard, or that I was dealing with that is part heard. And so I do believe that the 23 weeks that I've had has given me sufficient experience to certainly make me feel as if I'm in a position to ably and adequately do this job.
Has that afforded you the opportunity, for example, to write judgments, have leave to appeal applied for example, to have the matter serving, as it were, before the SCA and them being overturned or otherwise?
Yes, no, not to that extent. Obviously, I have. I noted that I think one of the comments, I think it was from the GCB, had said something about that I've written limited judgments. That is not strictly correct. I didn't put all the judgments that I've written up on my with my questionnaire because I didn't want to burden the papers. I simply put up a selection of 4 which I felt were representative. I have written more than that, but I haven't. Nothing's been taken on appeal as yet.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Nkosi Thomas. Commissioner Norman.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Ms.
Good morning,
Law.
Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you a colleague
Yes.
as a colleague at the Durban Bar, but you've mentioned to an answer to the MEC about transformation. You mentioned that you believe that the transformation of the judiciary would also be influenced by transformation of the profession as a whole.
Yes.
What I would like to find out from you is what has been your contribution towards the transformation of the profession?
Of the profession. I have mentored 5 pupils, 4 of them who were women. I have been involved in advocacy training on and off. And as with most people at the bar, as you know, I have a very open door policy of my door is open for anybody who wants to come to discuss matters with me. And you will have seen from the letter of nomination from Gabriel SC that she seemed to have regarded me as being an inspiration and a role model to her, which I must say came as something of a surprise. I wasn't aware of that, especially for somebody of her caliber. So I hope that I have been able to provide similar inspiration to other female members to the extent that Gabriel SC has commented.
Thank you. And then my follow-up question, the mentoring program at the bar is almost compulsory because, look, once you reach a particular level at the
Yes.
bar, you are given a pupil to mentor.
Yes.
But that doesn't really answer my question. My question goes beyond that. At the stage then, when now you're practicing, you see there's too many now African females that have come onto the bar, as you've mentioned. Have you worked with any female, African female, on any matter?
I haven't.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Judge President Japie.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Advocate Law, how would you describe the workload in the division, both in Durban and in Pietermaritzburg?
JP, it's heavy. I certainly found when I acted last year, I managed fine with the workload, but it is quite an onerous, punishing workload. You do have to keep at it. I found when I did appeals, for example, in September, October, November last year, that was something of a baptism of fire. I was quite overwhelmed by the volume of reading that one had to do. But since the system has changed and the appeals have now been spread between Durban and Pietermaritzburg, I found that the workload when I was in Pietermaritzburg in this last session, it was much more manageable now that the appeals have been spread around.
Something that's been alluded to already in the interviews today is, do you think that you are taking into account the limited period that you have been acting? Do you think that you are now ready for an appointment to the KZN bench? What would your comment be about that?
JP, I would say yes, I am.
And why would you say that?
Because as I said, I found the job very stimulating and challenging. I feel that I've coped relatively well with the workload. I have, where has been necessary, taken on more than has been allocated to me if something has collapsed or if I've had free time.
Yes. Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, JP. Minister?
Good morning, Advocate.
Good morning, Minister.
Something concerns me
Yes.
in your answer. Are you telling me that in 23 years of your practice as an advocate, you have never had the opportunity, desire, and so on, to tag along a junior member of the bar who is African, let alone African women? Or was it a matter of choice that you preferred not to expose yourself to that situation of having to work with a person in that category?
Minister, no. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a matter of choice, of choosing not to do that. It's just never been. As I said, my door has always been open to people to approach me for mentorship or for assistance in any way.
Sorry, if I may, Chief Justice.
Yes.
And sorry for being rude by interrupting you. Is it a matter of being approached, or is it something that should be a two-way street where you yourself could identify somebody and give them an opportunity to grow under your wing? I'm just trying to understand whether
Yes.
it's a systemic issue where you can only be approached, or does it take a situation of, in other words, I'm trying to understand whether you are a transformation agent inherent in yourself, or whether transformation is not quite part of what your orientation is at.
Yes.
Especially in the light of your personal experience that you related when you were in Britain.
Yes. And also, I suppose, starting, I mean, at the bar myself, where things were very much different as they are today. Look, it's not only a question of having to be approached. It is so that I haven't actively gone out and identified people and said, come along and join me on this case. But I certainly have made it known to people that I am there and my wing is there for them to be taken under. Also, Minister, my practice, as you would have seen from my questionnaire and my CV, has largely been a family law practice. And I'm not certain how many people, because it's how many people want to actually get involved in that. There has been a bit of a stereotype attached to people in the family law field, or to the practice of family law. But yes, I have not proactively gone out and invited people to join me in cases.
And my last question relates to the fact that 23 years down the line, you have not acquired silk status. Have you ever been nominated? Have you ever come forward? Do you believe that you're silk material? I'm just trying to understand
Yes.
how it happens that having been at the bar that long, you have never,
Taken silk. I have been asked by colleagues previously why I don't take silk, why they've said you ought to. And the reasons for me not doing so have been partially altruistic and partially selfish. On the altruistic side, as I've said, I primarily do family law, and I've felt that if I were to take silk, it's going to put my services beyond the reach of most of the middle-class people who require and have used my services. That's the altruistic aspect. So and there are already quite a few silks in the arena, and it's a fairly small pool, and we don't have very big money divorces in KwaZulu-Natal. So I haven't wanted to put services out of the reach of people who need them. And then on the selfish aspect, it has been that indeed I do need to make a living, and one doesn't want to price oneself out of the market from that perspective as well.
Sorry, Chief, just one last follow-up.
Yes.
Are you bound to set a higher, shall we say, a much higher fee upon acquisition of silk? Is it something that's fixed, or is it a prerogative of the silk how they want to make their services accessible or not accessible?
Well, it is partially a prerogative of silk, but there has also been criticism of silks in the past, people who have gone and taken silk, and then they have sort of undercut the junior bar. So by taking silk, they've gone and elevated their status and are seen to and attract possibly more work because of that, but then they've kept their fees at junior level, which then has been seen to take away work from the other juniors who haven't taken silk unfairly. So it's partially prerogative and partially what's expectations within the society as well.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner Nokesi.
Thank you, Justice. For now, let me pass on.
Thank you. Commissioner Fourie.
Thank you, Chief Justice. One of my questions was covered by the Minister regarding the silk status. Good day.
Thank you.
Sorry for only saying so now, Ms. Law. I just think, in all fairness, I need to refer you to the nomination letter by Advocate Gabriel.
Yes.
Who is an African female, is that correct?
Yes, she is.
She talks very complimentary of you, and she, amongst other things, says that, if I can just find the place, I think it is important to note that when I commenced practice, there was only a handful of women at the bar. Ms. Law and I were of similar ages, and her presence and steady reassurance convinced me that I too could do this job. The value of this cannot be lost, and it is something for which I remain immensely grateful to Ms. Law. female role models at the bar are a rare commodity, and I was so fortunate to have that in the presence of Ms. Law. Thought that was quite a compliment.
It was.
There are others that in the same letter that I will not repeat. Perhaps just a last question. There's reference twice in the nomination letter of Ms. Gabriel that you've succeeded and built a good practice and a good reputation despite personal setbacks. You don't have to, but are you prepared to elaborate on that reference to personal setbacks?
Yes, just very briefly. There was, in a fairly short period of time, I lost, there were 3 people very close to me who died, one in unexpected and sudden circumstances. And then there was my health, which has dealt with in my questionnaire, my diagnosis in December 2014.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Commissioner Fourie. I just want, if you could switch off the mic, Commissioner Fourie. Thank you. I need to understand something here. It appears that you helped Advocate Gabriel SC grow in her practice as an advocate. Is my impression correct?
Yes, well, that's, from what she has said in her letter, that is
Yes.
correct.
So she found you there.
She found me there, yes.
How is it, considering gender prejudice, racial prejudice, that she managed to grow and venture into a wide range of fields beyond you, the mentor, and became SC? And you were not able to venture into other areas or diversify so that though family law appears to be your passion, you could also be seen to be growing, achieving, like your colleagues.
Yes, Chief Justice.
Let me be open and tell you where I'm coming from, because nothing is hidden. You see, it could give rise to an unfortunate impression that there is something about your performance as an advocate that has kept you somewhat stagnant. And that is why your mentor, Gabriel, from a thoroughly disadvantaged background, comparatively speaking, she comes up, shines, appears before the Constitutional Court from time to time. So maybe you need to just explain that not so easy to understand situation. It would be easy to understand with the benefit of an explanation from you, I think.
Yes. Chief Justice, I think, she is certainly one of the women who has managed to break out of the mold of being sort of sidelined, so to speak, in the profession. I don't believe that there's anything about my ability as an advocate as such which has kept me back. But I did find that when I started practice, and in my first, let's say, the 7 years, I did not want to, I tried to avoid getting pigeonholed into the family law aspect because there was the perception that is what women are good to do, particularly back then. And unfortunately for me, it seems that I did not manage to break out of that mold. And when people started giving me family work, I began to take it, and once the floodgates opened, so to speak, that's the niche that I went into. And Miss Gabriel, probably because she managed to break the mold, and I can't explain. Perhaps she was given more opportunities than me because of her interest in, her talent in constitutional law. It's difficult to explain.
Interest
Well,
or
it's her
talent?
It's her passion, it's her talent, it's her, yes. Not in,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. No, thank you, Ms. Law. Commissioner Mpofu?
Thank you, CJ. I'm sorry, I thought you had noted me. Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Law.
Good morning.
Yeah, look, on this silk thing, I represent the GCB and AFT, and you know how that works here. You know, I'm not quite sure. I mean, both Commissioner Kane and I have chaired the Silk Committee at different times in Johannesburg. I don't know how it works down there, but if you had never mentored or taken a black African junior when there are opportunities to do so, you would. I doubt if you would attain Silk in Joburg. I don't know about other places. Particularly if there's no explanation for it. Was that one of the impediments that made you not to apply, or is that an issue in the Durban bar?
No, it's not one of the impediments that made me not apply.
Okay. Right. Now, the second issue is to do, you know, this transformation thing has got to do with the numbers and all the cosmetic stuff. But much more seriously, it has to do with softer issues such as empathy, which I describe as the ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes. Having gone through the experiences that you went through in the UK, yeah, and I appreciate what you say, that it was the first time you experienced it. Maybe it was the first time you experienced it as a person, but surely being South African, you had seen other people being degraded and assumed just because of their biological appearances to be incompetent, stupid, inferior, or lazy. Did you, coming back from that experience, not find it necessary to yourself make sure that other people in the profession are not put in that position?
Commissioner,
Oh, I'm sorry. What I'm really saying is that I'm sure you sympathized and so on, but taking practical steps to make sure that black advocates in general and black female advocates even worse are not judged by the cover, as you say, and are given opportunities to be taken under your wing and so on.
as I said, I have been empathetic to the plight, and as I've said, my door has always been open there to offer guidance and encouragement and support. But as I said, I haven't actively pulled people on board to become involved in cases that I've been in.
Okay, thank you, Sisha.
Thank you, SC. Ms. Law, thank you very much.
Thank you,
You're
Chief.
excused, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief
Thank
Justice.
you.
Thank you, Commissioners.